Hey everybody, guess we're gonna start. So we're just gonna start. All right, we're gonna be making a mask here. It's going to be a filter pocket mask. We're going to be using the Craft Passion Design. It's going to be the second of the two patterns in that packet that's in the URL. So I will show you what the pattern looks like. So when you go to load it up on the web page at this URL, face mask pattern, it's there on your right hand side. If you're doing for donation or something like that, they pretty much everybody's been saying just use the largest size. If you're doing it for your family, whatever, just use whatever size seems to be appropriate. Now there are two patterns in this full packet how to. You want to use the second one down. That's the one that has a filter pocket built into it, so you can put any kind of filter material you want in there. So by filter pocket, you're looking at something where you can put something in between the outer layer and the inner layer. So it just opens up like that, and you can put whatever you're in there. What we've been using around here is, where'd the box of towels go here? We're using the blue shop towels from Toolbox. This seems to be a good brand to use. So there's multiple brands. Toolbox is one that's available at Home Depot, at Harbor Freight, several other places. You don't want to use the Scott brand, not because they're not good towels, but just in terms of the way they deteriorate quicker if you accidentally wash it. And also, it seems like this particular brand, because of the way it's made, does a little bit better in terms of air filtration. Again, these are not going to be medical masks. So this is just to kind of help you out in terms of if you're asymptomatic and you sneeze, it'll keep it more in toward you and you don't infect other people. And still, something's better than nothing in terms of if you inhaling and you don't get any particulates on yourself. So once again, Home Depot, Harbor Freight, Toolbox brand blue shop towels. Now, couple other places, things you can do if you're also doing filter material. You can just use standard surgical masks. That'll work as a filter material. Again, just put it into that pocket. That's a generic one. These we actually got at our local Japanese dollar store. It's called Daiso, Daiso. $1.50 for a box of 30. They were out last time we were in there, like 3-4 days ago, and they're being out constantly, but if they get restocked, this might be something you'd be able to use. The mask that we're making right now will not fit over an N95. So there are several other patterns out there. If you want to do something that will fit over an N95, just do a Google search. There's plenty of ones that you can find that'll be able to do that. So does anybody have any questions? Just throw it up in the chat. Now I'll see if I can answer them as best as I can. So once again, this is the pattern we're going to be using. Sewing machine we're going to be using, not that it's a big deal, is the Baby Lock Zest. Now, if you have your machine at home, great, that'll work just fine. If you have a secondhand old one, whatever, just if you're going out and buying one, you'll be able to find plenty of really, really good ones. It's just a matter of, if you're looking for something with a recommendation, this machine right here is the one that we really, really like. The reason we like it is because it was recommended to us by our repair guy at the Dallas Makerspace. The reasons for that is it's very inexpensive. If you look for it online, there's a couple places you can find it for under $100. There's one place in California with the first time order from us coupon. It'll be like $90 with shipping. So that's a really good deal. When we bought it locally, I think we paid $129 plus tax. So, but the reason they really liked it, it's very durable. There's a lot more metal in it than is normal at this price point. The gearing in it is all metal, not plastic like it normally would be. And it has a vertical and not a horizontal bobbin. That's a lot more durable if you're not used to doing sewing. It's a little more tolerant of having something, if you're force things or you're not gentle with it, it's a little more tolerant of the timing staying on and not needing to go in for repair. So we like the Baby Lock Zest. If you're looking for a basic machine that'll hold up for basic sewing and is inexpensive, this is the one we like. Now, one of the other set of tools we're going to be using when you go to make ties is going to be to make your bias tape. I'm tending not to recommend elastic just because it really starts to hurt on the ears after a while. And also right now it's getting really hard to find. So I'm going to show you a bunch of ways to just make bias tape at home if you can't find it, because even buying bias tape is getting to be hard. So you can use the bias tape tool, which is basically taking, normally what we're doing is a 1-inch wide strip. And you feed it through. That yellow one in that top left corner is the 1-inch wide. You feed it through. As you're feeding it through, you iron it down, folds it over, and then you fold it over one more time to lock it down. I'll be showing you that exact process later on. If you can't find a commercial bias tape tool, that top right corner is a 3D printed one. They are available all over the place. You can reach out, find somebody to print it. We might be able to get some out of DMS. But I know there are plenty of places out there, plenty of makers who are making these, and you can get it really inexpensively. As another option, if we're able to source one, the bottom right-hand side is a bias tape binding foot. That you can take 1-inch tape, insert it in there, and it'll fold it and sew it in one shot. Thing is, they're hard to come by right now. I've ordered 3 over the past 2 weeks. First 2 got canceled because they were out. And third one was supposed to be here on Monday. Supposedly it's in transit right now, and I'm waiting for it still to show up. But it is supposedly, according to tracking, in process. So we'll see how well that all works out. So I'm going to get started here. I'm going to basically lay out the pattern, cut the fabric, and then we'll start sewing stuff together. So we're going to switch over to our work table view and we'll start cutting. These are just some that we've already done. You can get really nice and non-PC or just whatever. Use whatever fabric you have. It is recommended that you use fabric with at least a thread count of 180. Old bed sheets are fine. Not a problem. Wash them first. Go to town with it. Bed sheets, pillowcases, all that kind of stuff. Cotton t-shirts will work. A lot of people are using t-shirts to make ties. They're making cotton t-shirt yarn, which is a way of just cutting it up, and it works pretty well for ties. But we're mainly using quilter's cotton, which is really nice, dense, heavy fabric. Kona cotton from Joann's works really well. The Country Crafters will work, but it's dodgy. You definitely want to be putting a filter in if you're using what's that?
Country Classics.
The Country Classics.
It's a little bit thinner. It's
yeah,
lighter weight.
It's a bit lighter weight, so you're definitely want some filter material in there with that. So I'm lucky, since I had access to the makerspace, I was able to cut a plexi pattern. So since I'm doing big bulk cutting like that, all this stack's already been sewn, but I'm typically cutting 4 to 8 layers at a time. Having a hard edge pattern is going to make my life a lot easier. This is pretty much the pattern that you guys already have if you're using the Craft Passion pattern. I just printed it out on heavier cardstock. I think this was a 65-pound paper, it'll just hold up a little bit better when you're using your disc cutter. So you can do it by scissors. If you're using scissors, you're probably just going to pin it to your fabric and then just cut around the edge. Whichever works best for you, use the tools that you have. I'll be trying to get more of these plexi patterns made, and we should be able to just do drop-off, pick-off out front in the DMS, or we can make other arrangements. So for our fabric, we're going to go with the nice flowers for our outside, and we're going to go with this nice teal aqua for the inside. So this is like a quilter's cotton here for the top, and this is going to be a Kona for the inside. This has already been washed and was ironed once. It's gotten a little beat up, a little more wrinkly because it's been folded for a little while, so I will be ironing it. And where are my ironing pads? They are right in front of me. These little roll-up ironing pads are great. We also pick these things up from Daiso. Check out your local dollar store. There's all kinds of cool stuff there that you'll be able to use for a lot of different things. So I'm just going to keep talking Daiso, 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 just because we're able to get so much and the quality is really nice for the price. So just go with whatever works for you or whatever you're able to source.
When the Makerspace reopens, we'll probably put a go shop with class.
If you're local, come up to the Makerspace after we reopen. We'll do a shopping trip, we can take you to the local Daiso, show you where everything is, all the different tools, all that fun stuff. Okay, so when you're cutting your fabric, I would recommend when you're doing it, cut at least 2 layers at one time. And you want to cut it so you have the right side together, so the pattern that you're going to look at, go face to face. And then you're going to be seeing the wrong side for you to cut with. Yeah. There we go. So, since I'm doing production cutting, I'm tending to do 4 layers at once, but that's just a matter of whether you want to be really, really cranking out big numbers at once or not. Now, if you are doing big, lots of them at one time, the way I've been doing it to keep efficient with my fabric usage is I'm folding it over and kind of measuring it with a pattern. So right there, that's just enough that it'll cover 4 layers, and the extra's right there.
There was got a comment. Okay. So the ties. Okay, someone was asking if these are reversible. These are not.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with the question of whether these are reversible, with the pocket design, you could reverse it. It's just going to show. Here we go. When you go to reverse it, you have the pocket here. Normally that's against your cheek. So if you flip it, that pocket's going to be exposed. It might flap out. It doesn't really hurt anything, but it's just a little messy. And then if you have a nose wire in, which I do highly recommend, you'll have to pull that nose wire out and reverse it so it'll bend the other way. You could just bend it, but if you keep going back and forth, you're going to wear out your nose wire. So it's better if you're going to do that to physically pull it out and then flip it. These, I don't have it sewn in. It's just a stitched channel, which I'll show you later on how that works. So I have the 4 layers laid out. I have the seam, that's all cut seam right there, or that's the folded over seam. I can just lay the pattern right on that edge. And I'm trying to be efficient about how I am using my fabric, so I want to get it right up close to the selvage edge. I'm going to use my rolly cutter. A little bit more. There we go. So that pulls out 2 full mass patterns for the front. And then on that seam right there, I just cut it. Bam, there you go. 2 full sets, front and back, and they're already lined up. If you try not to like separate these layers, I will lift this up and flip it like that. That just makes it easy when I'm doing bulk cutting or bulk sewing. I can pick up, pick up, pick up, alternating sides. That way it doesn't accidentally separate these and get them misaligned as I'm running it through the sewing machine. And then to continue cutting, I cut it like that originally. Now I'm just going to rotate that around, tuck that in, and then that's going to minimize the waste on the fabric. And with the rolly cutters on this, I like the little small disc one, the small side, which is 27 inch?
28 millimeter.
Yeah, 28 millimeter.
And it's used for thinner fabrics.
Yeah, for thinner fabrics, for detail work, this isn't going to work well for fleece. But you could probably use the 45s. But for this work, if you have a choice, I really like the little small detail stick cutter. Didn't quite get it there. And since we cut that edge, we don't have to cut that one apart with our scissors. So again, I just separate and stack, just alternating the sides. So that's all we need to do for that one. And we're gonna go and iron our liner. And that's pretty much going to be the same process. While I'm ironing this, any more questions?
Can you use cotton polyester blend?
They recommend 100% cotton down to 60-40 cotton poly. Part of that has been for donation purposes. You want to do 100% cotton because that will handle high heat sterilization. If you're just doing this personally, you can get the poly blend in there, but I wouldn't go beyond that 60-40 or 50-50 would probably be pushing it. But that's, if you're just throwing it in your home washing machine, that should be just fine. Now, this is all the kind of research that I've run across online. This isn't, a lot of it's pretty good, but I can't say it's all necessarily medically, scientifically, whatever tested. So please take this with a grain of salt. I am not a lawyer. I am not a medical professional, so don't sue me. So once again, just going to lay that out so it's just enough. Now, on the liner, we are not going to be doing the full length of this pattern. You only do the full length for the outsides. So on the paper pattern and on this plexi pattern, I have an etched line on the plexi, and I have on that one I just put in a dash line when I printed it out. That is where you're going to cut it for the liner. That is because it doesn't cover the full inside of the mask. So it needs to be cut a little bit short. I've actually added an extra ½ inch on these plexi patterns because it just makes that outside loop that your tape's going to go through a bit bigger and makes it easier to feed. So you don't have to do that, but will make your life a little bit easier to feed that through in the long run. Especially if you're doing bulk cutting. Oh my God, that's one of the more tedious parts of doing it. So if you're doing the paper pattern, I just cut it with the outside, then I just fold that under and then cut the smaller one. For this one, I just line that up with that etched line there. So I can slide that back. A little bit more. There we go. Yeah, if you're doing this folding stack, you want to make sure that if your edges creep in, you don't want it to have a big missing part on that. So just double check where your edges are.
Did you remember to press record on this one?
Yes. Strude was asking if I remembered to press record this time because I didn't tape it the last time. I thought Twitch automatically did a capture of it. And I found out, no, they don't.
Because we're techno peasants.
Some of us more than others. Come on, let go. There we go. And then once again, just cut those apart. Now, when you're flipping it on this side, it gets a little bit trickier. You just need to pay a little bit of attention on this one. I just need to remember to start and stop my cut right there where this etched line is. Come on. And then I just kind of lay the cutter down right where my etched line is. Slide the pattern down. and then just cut across. There you go. And right there we have a set of 4 masks ready to go, already cut and ready to go. Excuse me. All right, now we're going to switch over to the sewing machine. Okay, now I already have the machine set up with white thread. If you want to go through and make everything line up, that works for colors. I'm not going to get too picky about it at this point, so I'm mainly doing bulk stuff. So black thread, white thread, and that's about all I worry about. So I'm basically doing about 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance. The pattern goes, I believe, 3/8 and 1/2 inch. I have kind of taken the pattern, worked with it a bit, then I've altered it as I see fit. So going straight from the pattern is going to work just fine. So don't worry about it too much. Just go with what works for you. So already set up, got my bobbin and my spool all set up. So just going to get started. Now, if you're doing production mode, don't clip right after you finish each piece. Just feed the next one in right next to it and just keep going. Just keep going, keep going. That way you can get things going a lot quicker.
Slow it down because you're bouncing the camera's bouncing.
Okay.
Holding it down when you sew.
As you can see, I got a little bit of a wrinkle here. It really doesn't affect things too much. When you're doing the chain stitch, when you're swapping it over, I forget half the time, but have your needle down. That way it'll help things to not shift around as much. And you can keep right on going right into the liners. don't worry, I'm not going to do this many for every piece. I'm just going to go through the full one single mask. This is just to show you how chain stitching works. And now we can start cutting stuff apart. So you can see it's just like flags on a string. And that way you can just snip it apart. And you don't have big tails to chase down. Now the other thing is you do not need to backstitch to lock the threads on almost any of the seams in here. There will be 2 seams at the very, very end where you'll backstitch to lock the seam in. Otherwise, you don't have to do it on anything else because everything gets folded over and it just gets locked in by later seams as they're put together. Alright, now we need to iron this seam because we're going to fold it over and top stitch it. Now, when you're doing your ironing, you want to try and make sure you're always doing both the top, the front, and the liner. You want it to iron the exact same direction. So I'm going to do this, do them both going that same direction. The reason for that is once it's laid down flat, when these are put together, the seams will not stack up and get a really, really thick section right down the middle line. It'll lay a bit flatter that way. So again, just when you're doing your ironing, try to be consistent and do it the same for every single one going in the same direction. So get that to lay down nice and tight. One of the reasons I've been doing a 1/4 inch instead of 3/8 of an inch on my allowance is I don't need to clip notches into it. I've been able to get it to lay down pretty nice and flat without having to sit here and start going snip, snip, snip down the length of the seam on the inside. And there we go. So that's your inside liner and your outside cover. Now, when you're doing all your straight seams, you can use your regular foot. If you want, and you want to get fancy or be really, really consistent, the Zest offers this foot. It's part of the pack-in kit. Most other ones are going to have it. And it's going to have this little adjustable plastic part right here. And basically that gives you a seam indicator where your seam is. And you can set that off of where the center of the needle is. So if you have that option and you want to use it, you can see that basically this seam is offset just that little bit, and it gives you a nice little guide of where you want to be. It's not required. It's just basically if you have access to it, it's a nice little thing to have. And it's also a matter of if you want to bother swapping the foot back and forth. Not a big deal. You don't need to. But it's, like I said, sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't, but I just wanted to show you the option if you're wondering what this individual thing did. Let me cut these in a little bit tighter. Now, so you can see there's your seam, fold it over to the side. I can put that indicator right there on that seam, and I can open that up a little bit. And then I can just start sewing and use that as a guide. There you go. Top, the inside and the outside are top stitched. So you can see you got that nice consistent seam lines because that guide just really helps. If you're doing fashion patterns or anything else, that guide really does come in handy, and it locks that down nice and flat. Same on both. Okay. Now the next step, on your liner, we're going to fold over twice and do a seam down that to lock that in place. The reason you're doing that is just to give you a nice finished edge for the inside of your pocket for your filter material. That way, when you're putting your filter material in and out, it doesn't have a raw edge to catch on. You don't really need to change this foot out. You can leave it right in here. It doesn't affect anything. If you wanted to, you could weave it all the way out to the edge. You don't really need to. This one, I just let it ride where it is. Now this one, if I had a whole bunch, I could chain it together down the one side, clip it, and then do the other side. But since I only really have the one, I'm just going to clip it right there. And we'll do the other side. And if you wanted to be really particular on it, you could fold these over and steam it, iron it down, but I haven't found it to be necessary. So and there we go. Got that all set up. Now we have our pocket all set up, and now we're going to join the two pieces together. Now you're going to want to put right side to right side. So take your outside fabric, have it showing the part you're going to want to look at. And then you're going to have your liner inside out, and you're going to stack the two together. Put the outside fabric into the liner, and then you're just going to line up the seams and the edges. Now remember when I talked about the flaps offsetting? So here's your flap there, there's your flap there. And that way you don't have a really big stack up. You can get that middle seams running right down the middle between those two. And then when you sew that together, you just will get that nice, it'll lay much flatter and smoother when you go to wear it. Now, when I go to sew it, I'll probably swap back to the other foot. Again, you do not need to swap feet like this. Your standard 1/4 inch foot is going to work just fine for just about anything. It's just a matter of if you're doing bulk stuff or you want to be real precise about it, you can go ahead and swap it in. But for this standard 1/4 inch foot will work for just everything. Now, even though you have this part down here on the liner, you could just do from there. I actually do the entire piece because this acts kind of as a guideline later on when I'm doing more steaming and top stitching. So I just top stitch the whole piece. Now, when you get to the areas where you have the multiple layers of fabric starting to build up, slow down a little bit just to make sure that you're not starting to pop through needles. It'll start to, once you get built up a bit, it will need a little bit more work to get through, and you just want to be cautious. Once you start getting into stacking these together, I tend to not chain it anymore because it starts being a little flippy floppy if you have this big long chain of these sitting around. So this is where I start doing the individual parts and clipping after each one. Okay, now you have the two parts fully joined. Just clip your extra threads. Now you're going to turn it in right side out, and you're going to iron the edges down. And whoops, I have a boo-boo. You can see right here that edge folded down on me, so I'm going to need to go back in and patch that and get that sewn back in. Seam ripper, woohoo! Yeah. So I guess in this case, we actually are going to have some back stitching going on. Come on. All right. Okay, all fixed. Nope, actually, I missed a spot. Didn't go quite far enough. All right, did we get it this time? Yes, we got it this time. Woohoo! Okay, now back to what I was saying. Now we just flip it right side out. Come on. Come on. There we go. And then we're just going to iron it. Now this is where having these little threads, seams down there, this helps to give me a little bit of idea when I'm ironing. That's where I want it to fold, so I don't have it going way over like that or way under. Just keeps it nice and consistent.
You get it. I love that fabric.
Yeah, our craft fabric stash is scarily extensive.
I think I found this one at Walmart
Yeah, Strude says she thinks she found this one at Walmart
in the pre-bundled section.
in the pre-bundled cut section recently or a while
yeah,
back.
Yeah, recently because I bought this for potholder class.
Ah,
And so since we're not doing potholder class, we're making masks.
so instead of pot holders, it's being turned into a mask.
I think that's my sister because that's the only person that spells I-A-R-A. They look like they look like Frida roses. Yes, exactly.
Do we have a relative in the house? nice crisp edge there. Now we can just go and just top stitch that in. Okay. This is another one of those spots where that other foot is kind of nice if you have access to it. Oops. Come on. There we go. And typically when you're sewing now, it's going to be this layer where you're really going to start to notice it when you start stitching through these really, really doubled up layers. Because you have like 6 to 8 layers right in this section right here and in that center section. So just be really aware when you're hitting those. And when you hit the center part, be aware this is one where sometimes you might have to pop your foot up and down just to allow it to move through cleanly. Right there, that foot's probably going to catch, so pop it. Okay, we are almost done with the mask. Not quite, but close. We have 3 more seams to do on the mask. We need to create the outside loops, and we need to create the channel for the nose wire. Loops are going to be very, very easy. We just fold that over twice. Going to do a stitch line right there. Same on the opposite side. And these last 3 seams are the ones where you need to backstitch. just clip those threads off. And you are done with this. Now, you don't have to put in a nose wire. I highly recommend you do. And I'll show you why after I put the channel in. But right here, you could just do this, put in your ties, and you're good to go. Here's your pocket. And put in your shop towel or your surgical mask or whatever it is you'd like to use. For going and doing the wire channel for the nose wire, we're basically just going to do a seam that starts here and just runs right along parallel, about 1/4 inch out to here. Back stitch, back stitch. Actually, I'm going to swap feet again. Like I said, I normally just do a 1/4 inch offset on this, so 1/4 inch from center line to the seam, and I use this seam here as my start end point. You can do it farther up closer to the nose bridge, but it makes it harder to feed the wire in there, so I just start back here. So then just, again, clip the threads. And you are done with the face of the mask. Now, for wire, what I am using, what I recommend everybody use, is bare copper wire. The reason I recommend the bare copper wire over twist ties, pipe cleaners, or anything else is there's been studies on the survivability of the virus on hard surfaces. Glass, stainless steel, plastics, the survivability can be 48, 72, 96 hours, as in 2, 3, 4 days. Bare copper, 4 hours at the outside.
Okay, stop right. Just tilt back. Just because you're flashing. So there, perfect.
Okay.
Don't tilt it any other way because then you're flashing the camera.
Right. So this is just 18, 20 gauge bare copper wire. I picked this up at Home Depot. They'll have it at Home Depot. They'll have it at Lowe's. They'll have it at Ace Hardware, Hobby Lobby, Joann's. A lot of them will have this. 25 feet for $5, $6. Each nose wire that I do is 4 inches long. That you can get about 70, 75 nose wires out of one reel of this. So this is what I recommend using. You can use the other stuff. If you launder it, it'll be fine. But just in terms of, for me, because of what I've been able to find out, I'm recommending just plain bare copper wire.
We've already put this one through 5 washes and the wire's fine.
Yeah. This particular one here has been through the wash 5 times. We haven't taken the wire out, and it's fine. You can right in there. So you can take it out. It'll slide right back out again if you're worried about that, but you can wash it with the wire in there. Now, like I said, I do 4 inch length. I already have a bunch here pre-cut and the ends bent, but just cut a 4 inch length and then 1/2 inch from each end, or pretty much I just use the width of the pliers I'm using. Bend it. like that. And then just continue that bend around. I tend to use my finger just because I can get a little bit of a softer loop out of it. Now you're going to get it curved piece like that. Now, you don't want to just bend it right there so you end up something like that. The reason for that is when you go and put that on your nose, those are going to pinch into your nose. So you want to bend it like that. So they're standing up. So when it's sitting on your nose, it's flat against the edge and it doesn't dig in. Do it like this, that's going to dig in. So, little trick, just you want to just watch what your orientation is when you put it in. So you don't want to put a real sharp bend in it, just like that. You'll tighten it up after it gets in the mask. It just makes it easier to feed it through. And with this, you shouldn't need a bodkin or anything to feed it through the channel. It's nice and stiff, so it'll work its way through very easily all by itself. So just flip it over, slide it into that channel, and just work your way through. Come on. Yeah, that's the one thing you want to try to get those loops nice and closed, because sometimes it'll catch on the edges of the seams there.
Well, it took only Patrick Please came in late. It only took me making an enormous password to get here. Well, welcome, Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. What's it? So just gently work your way through.
Scoot your hands forward.
This is kind of one of the little fiddly bits. Close that. Yeah, it's catching a little bit.
Patrick says, "Hey, y'all back."
And just get it right up there so it's centered. And then you're all set. So now we have our nose wire in. Now the reason you want the nose wire in there is when you put it on your face, typically when you have your ties on it, it's going to gap here next to your nose. It's because it's going to pull straight. When you have the nose wire in there, you're able to pull it in tight. So you have no gapping right there. So if you're wearing glasses and your glasses are fogging up, that's typically an indication that basically you don't have a nice seal right here, and you really want to try to get it nice and flush all the way around your face. So that way all the air is going through the fabric and not just coming in unfiltered around the edges. What are you giggling at?
Because there's green in there, so it green screens so the little 8 bits showed through.
Your little glistening bits. Green screen tricks. Okay, now we're going to make some bias tape. Bias tape is really easy. It's kind of tedious, but it's really easy.
Here's one.
Yep.
And then you have these 2 already folded, so that way you just show
Yeah, I already
one.
have it strips
There
over
you
there.
go.
So we're going to pull a little Julia Childs on you. So this is just regular cotton fabric. A lot of the times when I'm laying out my patterns, I'll have like a strip left at the end that I can't efficiently cut into. Leave that. You can end up making your bias tape out of this 1-inch strip of fabric at the end. So cut it 1 inch. Just going to cut it on a diagonal. I just need to stop clipping the cameras to the table. Cut it on a diagonal, and then you're just going to feed it through the end. Now, excuse me. If the fabric's thick enough or stiff enough, a lot of the times you can feed it all the way through. It'll poke out the end and you can grab it. If not, you can use something sharp. There's a channel built into these. You can poke down in and just help to feed it through and get it out the end. So just pull it out, get a little bit sticking out the end. Just going to take the iron, just get that started. And then once you got it started, carefully you don't steam your hand. I've done that multiple times. Just going to pull it through. There you go.
About how long a piece of bias tape do you need?
This is excessively long. I personally have been doing 24 to... I've been doing 24 inches is kind of short. Workable, but it's tight. 30 to 36. 36 I personally find to be long. I target initially do about 30 inches. Tie it on and see how it works for you. When we're doing them, though, we kind of tend to tie it a specific way. I just tie my two ends together at the bottom of the mask. That way I can just pull it over my neck, snug it up, and then I can just pull the top over, tie it if I need to. A lot of the times it's just pre-tied because I've been using it already, and that's works just fine. And then you can adjust it, but got that nose bridge pinched in nice and tight, got a nice seal. And if you're looking,
This one's got all sorts of green in it too.
all kinds of green screen going on. But if you can see it, how the fabric's moving in and out as I breathe, that's usually a pretty good indication that you have a nice seal going around your face. If you have a bad seal where it's able to breathe in and out, it's not going to move around as much, and the air is going to move out around the outside edges of the fabric. Okay, so we already have our folded piece of bias tape here. And we're going to switch over back to the sewing machine. And then we're just going to fold it over one more time. So you're going to have 4 layers of fabric. And you're just going to run it through. Now, on the sewing machine, you have outside feed dogs, and then you have a center one underneath there. It's probably a little hard to see. You're going to have to tuck this in a little bit further than you normally would, because the outside feed dogs aren't going to do anything. So you have to get it tucked into the back so it engages that back center feed dog behind the needle. And then come down. Feeding this gets a little tricky. I've kind of get into the groove and got a finger placement. You're going to have to figure out what works best for you. But I tend to put one finger down on right there. Another one right here. And then back here, I'm just kind of pinching it flat. And I'm able to kind of guide it so it stays evenly lined up. And I'm able to like lift up, recenter, reset that. This finger doesn't really move. This one kind of adjusts back and up and down as I need to. And this one just kind of holds that flat and feeds it in cleanly. You don't need to back stitch this either. And occasionally you might have to reset just to keep it lined up. It doesn't matter if it goes off a little bit, but you do want to try and keep it relatively straight and relatively even. This is one area where if you want to, you can also open up your stitch width just to go faster.
Too much vibration.
And yes, this is the most tedious part of making these from scratch.
Okay. Have you seen the videos for a bias tape maker made out of paper? Does that work?
I have not seen that one.
And Sarah also mentions that she hasn't seen that when she's been using 2 needles through the ironing pad,
Right.
and that she really likes the t-shirt yarn.
Yes, there are multiple ways of doing the your ties. So if this isn't working out for you, or you want to see other ways, this, like I said, this does get kind of tedious. Just doing length after length after length of this. You kind of have to make sure you're paying attention because your fingers are relatively close to the needle, and you need to stay in that small thing. So you can't just kind of mindlessly be paying attention to something else. You do have to pay attention when you're doing this. But the t-shirt yarn works really, really well.
And Patrick says your camera angles are amazing, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I got to remember to put the detail camera thing, not have it clamped to the table right next to the sewing machine, have it on the tripod separated so it doesn't bounce. So,
and then Janelle RS also mentions the site where we got the pattern has another link for making t-shirt yarn.
okay, there you go. So go to craftpassion.com and you'll be able to find another way of doing this. So in any case, with the bias tape, once I've got it sewn up, I can just clip off the extra end and then I just tie a knot. Let me switch to the close-up. So just tie a knot. I'm not going to do 2 full lengths, and I'm not subject you guys to that tedium. So just imagine this is one full length one. And then you're going to... Where'd the mouse go?
Right
There it
here?
is.
This one? Okay.
No, this one.
Oh, that one.
So now to feed it through, with the bigger loops, a lot of the times with this, especially when it's fresh, it's stiff enough that you can literally just feed it through. And then you can just use a pair of pliers. And just reach in and grab it. Like that and pull it out. Now, if it's a bit tighter or other things you can use, there's a couple of there's like several things you can use. You can fold this over. Pretend this is like a chopstick. And then you can just feed that in if this isn't stiff enough, and then grab it out the backside with a pair of tweezers. You can use...
Oh, Patrick is asking with the bias tape, the way you make it, about how long does it take to make a complete mask?
If I'm doing starting from cutting a pattern to end and I'm doing a single mask, I'd guess an hour-ish, but I'm typically doing bulk stuff, so I'm doing a whole bunch of cutting. like that. And then I'm sewing all these together. So all this entire stack is sewn together. So basically I'm doing one stack of this particular job, all of it at once. And then the next step, all of it once. Next step, all of it at once. But if I'm just doing a single mask, I'd guess about an hour.
Yeah. This is about 4 hours that they're with you and I cutting.
This is about 4 hours of cutting and sewing together. And this is all cut, sewn, and about half of it is top stitched.
And we did that last night.
Yeah, and we did that last night. Going back to pulling it through, feed it through, grab with tweezers. You can use a loop turner.
Okay. This one here says, Mr. Jimmy DMS, how many masks have you made so far?
I don't know how many.
I don't know.
4 or 5 dozen. Now we kind of broke off and we're doing some other stuff, and now we're getting back into it. That's, I don't know, at
That's
least
a big batch.
that's a big batch. That's probably like 10, 12 dozen. So we're going back and forth. I've given some to family out east. We're making this big batch for family up north and down south. I gave a whole bunch of stuff away to Joanne's at one point. I gave a bunch to my fellow employees last payday. So I honestly haven't been specifically counting.
And then since Patrick came in late, he was asking, do your masks have a filter in place?
No, I don't sew any filter material in. It's just got the pocket for you to insert your own. So give me a sec. Let me finish this and I'll go ahead and answer the rest of the questions. You can use a loop turner. Basically, this is just a tool. Once again, Daiso. Let's see if I can.
Tilt back down. There you go. It's that light.
So, and this will give you both a loop puller and a bodkin in the same package. And this is $1.50, $2. Real simple. You can get these at multiple other places, like Joann's will have it. Variations. Just Daiso's decent quality and it's cheap, and you get both of these at the same time. So, but
And Mr. Jimmy DMS says Daiso is awesome.
so again, with loop turner, you can push that through, put it through the loop, and that'll just pull it through real nice and easy. Alternatively, you can use a bodkin, which is basically a pair of tweezers that has a little bit of a clamp on it. So you just clip that on the edge, hold that in place, and this gives you a nice hard object that you can feed through and grip on. It won't bend on you.
Because you're making yourself blur and you can't see whatever ears you're holding. Scoot in, scoot forward.
So just feed it through, pull through, unclamp it. There you go. And then once you got it pulled through,
Patrick, Daiso is a poor man's crack house. I love their stuff. it's yeah. You can find all the goodies you find at Joann's that is triple the price, but you find it at Daiso for a lot cheaper.
oh yeah. So, and then just tie off your other end. And you are all set. Now, filter material. What we've settled on is that stuff. Okay, other camera. We're using Toolbox brand blue shop towels. Woo, green screen. Basically, there were some people that did their own particulate studies, and they're trying all kinds of different materials.
It was this group here.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It was these guys. So they actually have a pattern here that's really good going over an N95 mask. So.
And they also do a variation where they actually sew
Right.
the filter material in, and they said it washes about 7 to 8 times before it goes bad.
Right. So, but they went and did some research for homebrew, really nice research, but They recommend this specific brand of shop towels, the Scott brand, which you also find. Works really well for what it's for cleaning up messes, but for accidentally getting run through the washer and for just air filtration, this Toolbox brand works really, really well. So you can get this at Home Depot and Harbor Freight.
Question has come up. Do you cut the shop towel or just fold it into a rectangle?
What I've been doing is
Oh, where's the one that I just? Oh, it's in the. You put the filter in this one.
Yep. But fold it once in half, fold it into a quarter, cut it so I get two folded like that, and that's my filter. For this size, you're probably gonna have to trim.
You're hidden behind their little boxes, or I don't know if you can see it.
So basically, this is half of the shop towel folded in half, so you get 2 layers. And then I just trim an angle on the top so it fits into the mask. And then you can just pull it through. I don't know actual percentile ratings on this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's over 50%. But it's fairly easy to breathe through. And it's been working really, really well. If you do go with other materials, for example, the inside of this one, this is like it was at least a 400 count, might be a 600 count cotton bed sheet. It's dense. You can't see light through it, but you definitely feel it trying to breathe through it. So there's a trade-off on filtration versus ease of breathing. So go back and forth. One of those things. This with the blue shop towel has been working really, really nicely.
Teamwork. You better be nice to your stage manager, producer. Nice. I've got some, and Jimmy DMS is nice. I've got some in the garage already.
Yep. Yeah, it's about when I was at Home Depot about a week ago. They had them in stock. Harbor Freight was limiting them to 1 per person. Home Depot wasn't limiting them. They were running at Home Depot at $1.98 per roll, and it's 55 towels. So that'll give you about 100 filters. And like I said, these have been pretty good at washing. So if you leave it in and wash it, you're probably going to get a half dozen washes per cycle.
Request, can you show how to do the nose wire again and how you put it in the mask?
Sure.
And then someone else also mentions AutoZone for blue Scots.
You don't want to use Scott brand. Just in terms of, there's nothing wrong with using Scott brand for cleaning. That's what it's meant for. But the way they make the Toolbox brand and the way they make the Scott brand are different. It's a different manufacturing process. And the shop box or the Toolbox holds up better to washing, and it filters air better. I don't know the specific reasons why in manufacturing, but do not use the Scott brand. You'll use the Toolbox brand. What was it? Okay, I'll do the nose wire in just a sec. Washing. Delicates bag. This is, again, Daiso. Woohoo! This is actually sized for just doing a bra in it. If you use the big ones, they tend to tumble around and really, really get scrunched up. This one is good for about 2, 3, 4 masks or a single mask. It's much smaller, and it doesn't let it roll around as much inside the bag. So these are the bra size Delicates bags are really, really good. You can see it's not that big.
Shaking your hands like this. Hold your hands still.
Yeah,
well, every time you do that, you cause this vibration, and you can't see your product as you're holding.
So, going back to nose wires.
You don't need a Daiso sponsorship.
So again, this is 18 gauge copper wire. I got it at Home Depot. Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, any of those guys. Everybody's going to stock this stuff. Ook, O-O-K is a popular brand. This is Hillman, whatever, doesn't really matter. I use a 4-inch length I already got some of these pre-made. So pretend that's exactly 4 inches. Doesn't need to be exact, but it just makes her a nice even length. So cut your length. I just use pliers. Yep.
Because it's glaring.
Yep. Bend it over. Start your bend on both sides. Don't want to get a real sharp 90 degree. You just kind of want to get it started and then bend it over by hand.
And here's one that you can put it into you can put the nose wire in.
Okay.
Because they wanted the demo.
Right. So that. You do want to try to get those nice and tight. That way threads don't try to catch in there or won't try to catch on the fabric. Now, when you go to give it its shape, don't just bend that down like that, because once you do that, you go to put it on your nose, that's going to press into the side of your nose. It's not going to be comfortable. So you want to bend it that way. So when it goes against your nose, it's flat. So that's going to be a lot more comfortable. And then just to go to feed it in, again, you have that seam that's 1/4 of an inch off of your top stitch seam. And just feed it in there and just work your way down. And it'll probably hang up once or twice. That's why you want to try to keep that one edge closed.
I mean, how do you, because this white is causing the white balance to go out, how do you need to adjust this light? Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's better.
You can
Question is, could you use a heavier gauge wire?
yes, or you can just roll the, just twist the 18 gauge together. It's just that the 18's been working pretty well for me. It does loosen up a little bit over time, so if you wanted to do something heavier, you could. It's just a matter of sourcing it. The 18 gauge is pretty much 1820 is what almost everybody has in stock, and it's a reasonable price point. If you go into the electrical section, you can get heavier copper grounding wire. This stuff, this at least at Home Depot and Lowe's, you're going to find in the section where they do the picture hanging hardware. So
Don't shake.
that's where you'll find this. Like I said, if you need a heavier gauge, you can go to the electrical section. You'll pay a bit more, but it's all good. Just don't get the plastic covered stuff. Get the bare copper wire. Just keep feeding it through till you hit that center point. You kind of feel where it's even, and then there you go. And then once you put it on your face, just pinch it in nice and tight, and you're all set.
My issue is that I'd probably end up wearing the bridge out quickly due to overbending. That one there, I have worn that I've worn that out in the field for 3 hours for inspections, and it's gone through the wash at least 5 or 6 times, and it has not bent.
Right.
It is not broken or overbent.
You guys able to hear Street on that?
So when I have worn a mask because I still go out in the field for work. I go out into the field for work, and so I have to wear a mask since I'm out in customer contact. And the mask that Paul is holding with the zombies on it, I have the nose bridge because I wear glasses and I need that tighter seal. So I think I've been using it for about 3 weeks now, 3 or 4 weeks, and we've put it through the wash about 5, 6, 7 times already. As soon as I come in, and I'm having to adjust for my for my nose, of course, every time you move, and I have not had the wire break or go out of any type of major shape. I've just had to adjust it. Thank you. Not really. Okay, yes, that's better. Yes.
So, yeah, Patrick, if you're having an issue and it's just not working for you, just take your copper, probably take like a 5-inch length and just twist it together. Just take two
pieces.
Yeah, just take 2 pieces and but yeah, just take 2 straight pieces. Don't even before you even bend it, and just twist them together. Basically, it'll just be a spiral piece, and then just do your loops on the end. That way, it'll be much stiffer and it'll hold up. I mean, once you get that formed, especially if you do a piece that's twisted together, it's gonna be really, really firm. So if you're just staying with this, buying this one, and you're doing it, whatever works. You can use other stuff. A lot of people are using armature wire and other things. I'm just staying with the copper just because I know the surface survivability
Now you're covering all the masks.
with the COVID is a lot less on that bare copper. Anybody else have any questions?
Can you demo how you put the mask on with the ties again?
Sure.
Use that one there.
So, like I said, with mine's this length right here is probably about what I would recommend. Is there a tape measure? There's a tape measure right behind you there on the corner of the. Just FYI, that is
26 inches.
Yeah. So once you take the knot out the end, this is about a 28-inch long tie. So just say you feed that through.
Over here, because your little screens are blocking you.
Okay, there we go. So the mask oriented this way. I tie the bottom together so I can just drape it over my neck like that. Just pull it in tight. Pull it in. Nose bridge on this one's already formed, but on the new one you can do it. And typically every time you put it in, you can just tighten that in so it tucks in real nice and tight along the side of your nose.
Yeah, when you tilt down, don't tilt all the way down like that. Stop it about here.
And then you can just tie it up top. I probably tied some hair in there on that.
Mm-hmm.
But so with the nose bridge, you get it real nice,
Perfect.
tight in there. So when I'm breathing in and out, I don't have air moving up and down. If anybody wears glasses, if your glasses are fogging up, that's usually an indication because that's normally the number one area air is going to move in and out. For taking it off,
So that whole bias tape is about 26 inches.
26 to 28. Like I said, if you're
Depends on how big your head is.
yeah,
For me, for the first set of bias tape that he made were too tight and I could not tie them. So for my head, that 26 inch gives me enough to go ahead and get a nice bow that I can tie each time. And but the first ones they fit Paul, but they didn't fit me. So yeah, my head's bigger than his.
they were snug. They were snug on me too. So, but yeah, you can set it, and then once you're done, you can just slide the top off. When you're taking it off, don't touch the front of the mask. Just slide the tie off, grab the back edge, to slide it forward, and then take it off. You don't want to touch that front because then you can cross-contaminate.
And then you immediately, when you come in,
Yeah, as soon as you come in, put it into your wash bag.
and then
Zip it up, go wash, don't touch your face, go wash your hands. And then basically you can just pile these together and then just toss it into the laundry. They're recommending basically it does encourage growth. So if you're going to do this and you're out constantly, you're wearing it for long periods, you probably want multiples and be changing it every 2 hours, 2-3 hours, because just the moisture in your breath in and out is going to make it damp. So change it out, put it in your bag, swap out to the next one. You probably want to have a stack if you're working in public and you're having to wear these constantly. So you're going to want a stack of these, and you're just going to need to wash them regularly. So, but yeah, don't touch it and whatever. When you're taking it off, don't touch the front. Take the tie off, slide it off from the inside, get it off. Don't just go grab and put it on, put it off, all that kind of stuff. Keep your hands off you don't want to touch your face. You don't want to touch the front of your mask.
Yeah, there's several YouTube videos of nurses showing proper use of PPE and taking masks on and off.
Any other questions from anybody? We cut some time off this time. We ran 2 hours on the nose last time. We were getting done at 10 o'clock. It's not quite 9:40.
Well, everything's done.
All right. Well, if we're all done, we will wrap it up. So, last call for questions. And I know, camera's there, and I keep looking over here. I need to make sure that the monitor is right below the camera, so it kind of looks like I'm looking at you guys.
Thanks, Paul, and it's true.
You're welcome, guys. Hope anybody out there got some good info. Feel free to send me any questions that you have. Just hit me up on the Twitch stream or the Twitch address, and I'll try to answer you, or on the Facebook link. All right. Catch you guys later. Have a good one. Thanks, guys.
We will have access to the will we have access to the video?
Yes, I have to double check it. But I do see the record button going on right now, so I'll post it up. I'll put it up on YouTube after we're all set. And I'll give DMS a copy of it too, so they can throw it up as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Good night, guys.
Stay safe.
Link in the Facebook event to